Welcome to The Future Was Yesterday. My name is Mauricio Quiroga. Today, we're going to talk about the COVID-19 divergence. I think some companies will not be able to pass this test. And I always like to say that if you renounce the truth, you will also renounce its opportunities. And let's see what's going on today in the world. We are facing different interesting things. For instance, as you can see there in the upper left, China is treating the US with retaliations. As we see retaliations from China in the US efforts to protect its superiority in the world, we will see China reacting. And it's a huge menace for the American supremacy in terms of formats. Yeah, we see that we have Microsoft, we have Google, we have Apple, and they have all these kind of standards in which we work. You know, we work with Windows, we work with Android. So for instance, Huawei, you know that Huawei is the company that sells the most mobile phones in the world. And then you have other companies like Samsung, but the number one in the world is Huawei. For instance, in my country, Chile, the number one is Huawei. So when the US is saying, China, you know what, you will not be able to use Android, what's telling them is, you know what, develop your own Android and build apps and build an industry on this new Android. And it's not only for China, it's for Latin America, it's for poorer countries where Huawei is number one. No? And we are seeing also pressures, as you see there in the screen, TikTok, there's an app from China, that here in the United States, a lot of people is telling, okay, let's block this app. No? So I think that's dangerous, even though a lot of American and English and Western applications are already blocked in China. You cannot have Facebook in China, you cannot have Gmail in China, you cannot have Twitter. So it's interesting that China gets angry when the Western world says, okay, you know what, we're gonna put restrictions on your apps, on your standards, and they get angry, but they already have blocked those standards to the Western community. However, in my point of view, I think that the Western society is open, it's free, so we shouldn't block Chinese applications, okay? And we are living, in my point of view, the informatics era. We are seeing a change in the plutocracy that controls the world. You know, we always see that we have politics, but at the end, who can control economics is who can control policies, is who can control the world. So in that point of view, I think that we are going to see a huge change in the global order. As you see there in the screen at the bottom right, Facebook already has its own cryptocurrency that can be used for a lot of things. And it's not a currency itself, it's a smart contract platform that allows you to make transactions inside the platform. But that's only the tip of the iceberg. We are going to see the new banks that we are going to use in the near future. And those banks are Facebook, those banks are Google Bank, Amazon Bank, and it's very logical. They have all the information. They are already connected to us. They know everything about us. They can use artificial intelligence algorithms to understand our patterns. It's very logical that they have the opportunity to give us financial services much more efficient than the traditional financial services industry. And you have to think that this could be a global reach. We can have a global financial system in the near future because, in the first place, these companies are interested in entering into this industry. And secondly, we are facing a very crucial situation with the financial system, with an enormous crisis that's being triggered because a lot of companies are not paying their credits. So maybe we will have some banks that will fail. And this is a huge opportunity for the companies that control information, that manage information, that know how to use information, how to make profit from that information. And look at this chart over here. You can see that there are the 10 companies that have the most cash right now. And you see that from those companies, only 3 are non-high-tech companies. Well, maybe I can say that only 2 because Bristol Myers Squibb is a lab, so they are a high-tech company as well. So let's say 8 of those companies are the ones in the world that have more liquidity right now, 0 debt, so they are able to enter aggressively in the markets that will be very cheap. I'm saying will be, because right now the stock market is not at a low price. The excess of liquidity that's been injected by the Fed, by the whole world central banks, is making the stock market a nice place to invest. So that's why the stock market values are not reflecting the huge depression that the economy is living. But once I think that subsectors will suffer a lot, especially the real estate sector, we're going to see these big companies entering very massively to these markets. And there's a crucial thing that's going on. Elon Musk is a very famous people, no? He has his Teslas and everything. And he's a cool entrepreneur. Everybody talks about him. But an interesting thing that he's doing is that he's starting the first global internet spatial monopoly. This will be the first monopoly of internet access in the world. And this is not fantasy. He has already 482 satellites roaming our planet, and he will start this service globally at the end of 2021. So it's like 16 more months, 18 more months, you will be able to connect directly to the satellite of Mr. Elon Musk, and you will be able to navigate internet and pay him directly. If you are in North Korea, you don't care, you connect directly to him. And if you prolong this thinking, you don't have to pass to your local taxes authority or any censorship at all. You can work from Jamaica using Elon Musk systems and selling your services in London, I don't know, in France. And then you receive your payment in your Amazon bank, in your Gmail bank, in your Apple bank. You provide all your money, you manage all your money in the cloud, and you are a cloud citizen. And finally, you don't pay any taxes, you don't know anything because nobody can track you. Everybody, this new internet is global, is in the satellite. So it's a huge change in the way we see the world. I think we are changing to a new era. This is a huge change. As I just showed you, we are seeing the new banks that will be global from the big tech companies. And we are seeing right now the new internet, a global satellite network that you are going to be able to connect directly without passing through your current country censorship, for saying, no? But at the same time, there is something very interesting here. That's this sign that's here. USA sanctions equals new global financial platforms. And this is very interesting because the USA has been using its financial services, its global financial services. All the financial services are based on American logic. Since Bretton Woods, since the United States was the strongest economy in the world, everybody decided, okay, let's use dollars and let's use SWIFT standards and everything based in New York, and we are gonna manage all the trade, every payments, every settles, we're gonna use American logics, American systems. However, China has grown a lot. China is not anymore 6% of the GDP as was in those years. China, in terms of power purchasing parities, that's the power of purchasing or their currency, is bigger than the US economy. It's not bigger in nominal things. But to give you an idea, if I have $1 here, I live in Austin, Texas, and I go to the supermarket and I will be able to buy, I don't know, 3 apples, okay? If I go with the same dollar in Shanghai, I will buy 10 apples because it's cheaper. So that's what the power purchasing parities try to measure. How much products, services you can buy in a country compared with another one. When you make that adjustment, China is $27 billion, trillion dollars, I'm sorry, I was thinking in Spanish, $1 trillion, so it's bigger than the US. So that's an interesting thing. And you can see here that said China digital currency could challenge Bitcoin and even the dollar. And what they are saying this in Bloomberg is they are saying this because a cryptocurrency is not a money per se. It's a crypto contract and intelligent contract. So for instance, if I am here in Austin and a guy send me a container of shoes from China, and we are gonna use this Chinese cryptocurrency, the money will not be money till I receive the container. So I get my code of bar reading, ping, okay, I received the shoes, you know what? And in that moment, the smart contracts that is embedded in this currency will make the currency true. So you can program a currency. So finally, what China is doing, I will launch his cryptocurrency on November of 2020, I'm sorry, in a few more months. What they are doing is launching a new financial system that will compete over the dollar traditional system. This graph is very interesting. That's saying that the foreign holders of US debt. So of course, you see China is the ones that have more debt from the United States. And also Japan. But if you look further here, you will see that it's Brazil, little country, Chile. It's also one of the creditors of the United States. I remember when I was a boy, I was 16 years old, and we talk in Latin America a lot of this and said, you know why? I'm sorry, you know what? We are so in debt with the US, so in debt. How are we gonna pay them the huge amount of money that we owe them? And now it's the opposite. So this is a crazy thing that we are living. And I'm very worried because I live in the United States. I love the United States. My family is American. I will be American in several more months. So it's not a very easy time for me to see these things. And there is another important thing that we have to think. But let me go towards the other figures that I showing you here. And you can hear these three guys. You see Putin, the president of India, and the president of China. Well, this is when they met together and they signed the Shanghai Accord. In that accord of trade, of commerce, they said, okay, you know why we don't use our own currencies to trade between each other? You know why? And not only trade, but make loans and everything that is related with it. Let's have banks that use our currency instead of dollars, instead of euros. So what is gonna happen? What's going on? When the United States put sanctions over a country like China or like Russia, Russia is not a small country. It's a quite big country. It's not an island in the ocean. So you put sanctions over a country, sanctions of how to use a financial system, you will have a response of that country. So a lot of economists, and I'm agree on that, are saying, you know what, you cannot use the financial system as a way of putting sanctions, because otherwise you create the incentive for others to create their new standards. And that's exactly what's going on. And for instance, there are sanctions for a very big country, very, very big, powerful, rich country like Iran. We can have a disagreement about Iran, and it's very difficult to talk about Iran. A lot of people don't like Iran. I don't like either, but you cannot put sanctions over Iran, because if you put sanctions over Iran, you are putting the dollar economic systems, the American economic system that rules the world, in jeopardy. That's so what the guys from Iran made with the European guys. They created a barter system between them. So they say, okay, you cannot use the American-based economic system to make exchange between Europe and Iran. Okay, so I will make a barter system where I export oil to Europe and I import goods from Europe. And it's a barter system. So they created, it's running, it's a reality. Then we see what's going on between China and Russia, that they are providing another market. They are talking about having a common stock market. Think of that, a common stock market between Shanghai and between Moscow. They will have companies that will be open in this new market that will compete with NASDAQ, that will compete with the New York Stock Exchange, and it's a thought for technological companies. And the other interesting thing that I wanted to show you here is the banking system that Russia is making in the European-Asian alliance with their former colonies of the Soviet Empire. Kazakhstan, for instance, a big, very rich country. They are saying, okay, we have this new system, this new exchange system in which we are gonna trade everything. No? So that's another menace for the American based economical system of transactions in the world. And here we see that Russia is also making advances in having more transparent, more easy to use, open source, of course, economical system for all their influence that had because of the ex-Soviet Union in Asia, particularly because in Europe, we see that countries like Hungary, like Poland are already absorbed by Germany, by France, and they are not very interested in being part of the ex-Russian or ex-Soviet empire, unless Belarus, that is a very special country. So let's continue to see what's going on. This is something that's very difficult to talk about, but we need to talk about. You see that here the Wall Street Journal tells or says that Chapter 11 bankruptcies grew by 26% in the first half of 2020. And this is hard, as you see here in yellow. In the last stress test for the banks, the Fed declared, you know why, guys, banks? You cannot give dividends anymore. You cannot buy shares back anymore because you are in trouble. And these guys that are very smart, the guys from McKinsey, in this projection, they have two scenarios. This is a scenario 1, as you can see here, and a scenario A3, a scenario A1, I'm sorry. The losses from this crisis, this COVID-19 triggered by this crisis, could be higher, bigger than the crisis that occurred in the last financial crisis. So this is to worry about. And this is, as you can see, this is the light blue color, but the darker blue color here, this is the 2018 financial crisis. It's almost the same. What this graph is showing us is the loss that banks will have given the crisis that we are facing. So losses of banks could be the same. So this is very logical to think that these banks are going to have this kind of losses. It's very logical to think that some banks will go bankrupt. So we haven't seen yet the worst of the crisis. I hope this will never happen, of course, but we have to talk about what's going on. And numbers are numbers, and we cannot go against numbers. And it's very logical. If nobody's paying anything, why banks are not going to be in trouble? No? And this is in my state here in Texas. Well, we are seeing sadly a lot of bad news about companies. As you can see here, a tsunami of bankruptcies that threatens all the states. In Houston, in Texas, here Representative Sylvia Garcia is talking about the complications that we are seeing in our state. In our love states, we are suffering a lot because we are one of the largest oil producers in the world, 5.5 billion barrels of oil a day, and most of our productions came from shale oil. So that's a thing that's triggering a lot of crises. You know, producing shale oil is quite expensive. So if you face low prices, companies are suffering a lot. And our segment is very leveraged with a lot of debt. So it's very difficult because they are not having enough cash to face all their financial obligations. But let's move to the world. So let's see here to the left up where Germans are saying, no, the Atradius, there's a firm that analyzes things that are going on in the world financially. They're saying that Asia is going to face enormous suffering, enormous bankruptcies given the COVID-19. Here in Russia, well, they are talking about us. No? They are saying that given the fact of the quarantine, we are going to see a lot of problems here in the US, but they are facing a lot of problems themselves. This is interesting. In France, they are saying that there are companies when you have a debt in some countries or in some vehicles, you can also buy an insurance. The insurance said, okay, if I don't pay the debt, I will pay the debt for you, okay? So they are saying, you know why? We are not going to pay the debt that we secure in the first place. And why you are not going to pay this? Because in the contract, it doesn't say pandemic. I pay for any other scenario, but for pandemic, the contract says not. So there is a huge, huge problem there for structured complex vehicles, investment debt vehicles, derivatives that are there. So France is having their own trouble. And of course, as you can see here in the bottom right, China is talking about also problems about the US. They are talking about the US. They have already their own problems, very important problems. I will have another exposition to talk about the economic problems of China that nobody is talking about that. Well, it's a very closed economy and a country, so there is not a lot of information, but I can tell you that China is suffering a lot. But they are talking about us, no? They're talking about the huge crisis in the retail. And well, my country is my small country, Chile, is a country that has grown a lot with the retail in the whole Latin American continent. You have multinationals from Chile in retail, and they're going to suffer a lot. And the reason is two. One is because of real estate. Real estate is going to bottom of the value that you had before. Nobody's going to go to the mall anymore, or very few people. That's the first effect. And the second effect is all the business that are based on getting together, Gregorianist, no? Let's get together and make business because there are a lot of people together, restaurants, retail, cinemas, etc. All our business model are, okay, let's gather a lot of people, let's get the people together and sell things to them. Well, that's not anymore true. So that's why, especially retail, and you can see that in the REITs here. The REITs are vehicles to invest, real estate investment trust. You can already see that the market value is suffering a lot. In my country, a very important company, Falabella, their stock is 20% of the value that it has before the crisis. So let's continue to see what the world is saying about this. No? Then you see here guys from Brazil. No? I love Brazil. I have brothers from Brazil. Eu gosto muito de falar em português. I like a lot to talk in Portuguese. And well, the guys in Brazil are talking about us, about Texas. 200 US oil companies filed for bankruptcy. So that's amazing. Let's see what the guys from Spain, from the motherland, we say Madre Patria, from the motherland, from all Latins, Spain, they said that the recession in the US started in February. Well, it's not recession, actually, it's a depression, sadly. And here at the bottom left, we see what these guys from The Economist, like me, Economist, I like a lot of this magazine. But they say that we are going to see the biggest wave of bankruptcies in the history since we have statistics. Think of that. Since we have statistics, we're going to see the biggest wave of bankruptcies. And that's amazing. And here, I think that I was talking, no? In Italy, they say Credit Suisse said, okay, you know what, guys, the real estate market will suffer and will suffer or is suffering a lot. And it's very logical. If you pay $1 billion for a building that's full of offices, you have the net present value. That building, what's the value of that is the net present value of all the rents that you will have for the building. If I charge $100 per square feet, and now I'm only able to charge $20 because nobody used the office, then I have a problem. So the net present value right now is not $1 billion anymore, it's $200 million, but I still have a debt of $1 billion. So that's a huge problem for banks, that they give you money and they said, okay, I'm giving you money, but I have this support that say this is $1 billion, I give you $800 million. But what happened is that I gave you $100 billion, and then this is not 1 billion anymore, it's 200 billion, or it's zero. So this is why banks are suffering so much, especially in the real estate sector. And this is difficult to talk about this, but because everybody's talking about, okay, you know what? Vaccines will be ready in 2 years. That's true. We are going to have vaccines in 2 years, but we are 8 billion people in the world. We are 8 billion people. So we have to, if a guy is diseased, have coronavirus in the Central Africa Republic, and he travels to Atlanta, Georgia, we can have another round of big trouble with the virus. So bottom line, we need everybody to be vaccinated. So we need, okay, as this guy says in First Pharma, it's 5 years to be able to have everybody vaccinated. So that's bad news. However, let's return to 2 years, because I think this is an exaggeration, because, okay, we're going to have vaccines mostly the end of this year. We're going to vaccinate it, or mainly the people that are in risk, I think, because here in the United States, the country already bought in advance 100 million vaccines. So we are 330 million people. So it's not vaccines for everybody, but I think the vaccines are there for the people that are in the risk sectors. But let's go back to 2 years. So as in a war, this is like a war, you know? And The Economist has an article. If you want it, I can send you the article. Just send me an email and I can give you that article. But what they are saying is like, this is like a war what we are facing, because consumers and investors are losing confidence on the dollar, on the business, on everything. So like a war, you have destroyed the beliefs of the people. Like Professor Keynes said, the human spirits. If nobody believes in the economy, if nobody believes there is a future, and then I'm afraid, I will not invest. I will not contract people. If I not contract people, people will not buy, and we start a vicious cycle where the economy is going down because of the human spirits, because everybody is afraid. And we are facing that kind of thing, okay? And think of this, quarantine is similar to a bombing situation. We already have the economics knowledge about this when Frankfurt was bombed or London was bombed in the Second World War. People never went to the restaurants anymore, or to dance, or to cinemas, or anything that was outside their homes, no? And in that thing, the same is happening here. And we know exactly what's happened in terms of economic concentration, in terms of labor. So we understand this. I will talk in another video about that, about how the economy will recover since we have this experience from the Second World War. And another thing that's going on is the teledoing. Teledoing includes teleworking, that I'm showing there a Zoom video. I remember when I, like a year ago, I called a client and said, you know why I'm living in the US and I want to have a meeting with you? You know what? Yes, Mauricio, let's try to do it. Oh, it's so complex. This, okay, let's use Skype. And you know what? Why are not you here in Chile to make the business? No? And right now it's normal. It's totally normal. I'm making business in Barcelona, in Spain, in Mexico, that's very close by, in Chile as well. I talked with the guys in India the other day, and everybody looks to this as normal. So the demand for offices will go down a lot. And another important thing is that homes will have to be changed. Think of this. If you are working at home, you will need another room. You will pay for another room. And if you are a company, you will have to pay a more productive employee that has a special room in her home. So architects will have to design differently. The authorities will have to give a special permit to have another room in homes. And think of this, if I have an accident working at home, who pays for that accident? What happens if my internet is getting tampered by hacker and I got trapped and some hackers get confidential information from the company? So this is a huge change also in how we see work as well. How you lead a group of people that are not together. That's very interesting, no? How do you motivate them? How to control them, no? And also there are advantages as well, because you can have asynchronously in terms of being separate, but also asynchronously. So if I'm working here in Austin for a guy who's a contractor for me in Russia, no, I will not work in Russia because I will not be able to charge anything. No, that's not a good example. Let's use Sweden, much better. No, who will pay the taxes? How will be anything? The company is from Sweden, from Chile, or is from Texas. So there's a lot of questions that have to be answered. But in that question that I just made myself and you, this is a provocation in terms of nationality. What is the meaning of nationality, of a country right now, of having this passport? If we are all connected right now. So if you can think in terms of, why not having a country of only smart people? I don't care if you are in Jamaica, if you are in Russia. No, Russia is a bad example. I'm sorry. If you are in South Africa, for instance, why not having a country of smart people? That's an interesting thing. And it's a country, I will not tell you the country in Europe, in which you can be his citizen by paying $10,000. No? It's a Baltic country. I will talk later about that country. But it's interesting. You can be now the citizen of that European country in the Baltic. Okay, so let's continue. We say that vaccines, antivirals, immunity will take at least 2 years or more. 2 years or more. And many companies will not survive 2 years. I already talked about these massive credit defaults that will produce zombie companies in the future. And sadly, a lot of banks will have to be rescued with our taxpayer money. That's true. That's difficult to tell it, but it's very, the probability that this will not happen is very low. So if we are facing a war, this is a war, we need tools for war. We need weapons for this kind of wars, right? Put these Homo erectus that are killing this animal in the African savannah, our ancestors. No. Well, you know what? We are trying to fight with those tools in the thing that is in the bottom. We are facing, in the history of the humankind, the most competitive, open economy in the world, in the history of the humankind. So we need very special tools. And the tools that we have in the era that just ended hasn't ended yet, because nothing happens. Okay, let's switch down the contemporary era and let's start the post-strategy era, as I call it. One is going down little by little and the other is rising. No? So we need a special kind of tools. So I always ask my clients, how is your company coping with lead cash availability? Some of them has zero cash availability. How can you make the jump to a post-emergency prolonged crisis? This will not be 6 months. We have to understand this huge depression. Think of this, depression, no crisis, depression, sorry. And how will you arrange your client-provider relationship? That's another important thing. All the value chains of the industries, all the payments in the industry, how we can arrange this. So there are a lot of questions that have to be answered. I will not sell you my company over here, but we tackle these situations. We declare ourselves contracyclical. We are doing business now, and we are helping companies because of the situations that we are seeing. So we created the CFO approach. and it's cognitive financial optimization that we are using, okay? What's cognitive is the use of artificial intelligence, machine learning. Everybody puts statistics with asteroids, basically, and they put this sexy name, artificial intelligence. But basically, it's statistics with asteroids. And cognitives is the part of knowledge when these algorithms learn on detecting patterns, no? Like your face, my face, Facebook, no? But also we detect patterns in finance, in the balance sheet, in all the financial information, and we use that to create value for our clients. But as I tell you, I will not enter deeply in what we do, but in our philosophy that I think will work for you and your company as well. So I designed the VICTOGAIN model. And you say, what's VICTOGAIN? Well, it's because the VICTOGAIN.com was available, but mostly it's Victor, the victory, and gain in English. And I thought, who are the best guys for the war? Well, the military, of course. And what is their tool? What is the tool the military use? Their philosophy. Their philosophy is the military doctrine, okay? And you ask, how old is the military doctrine? And you think it's older than the humankind. So we are here 250,000 years, 300,000 years. Well, the Homo erectus that you saw there fight between them. And if you see chimpanzees that we have a common ancestor with them, they have wars between different tribes. So war is, let's say, 7 million years ago. That's the knowledge of the hominid in terms of war. No? So from that model, I created the VICTOGAIN model that allows organizations to survive, change, grow, and move at very rapid paces. And this is very important. That is the main source of capability of the military doctrine, and it's the human performance system. You have people, and you have technology and equipment. And the interaction between those, the interface between people, their technology and equipment, is what provides the performance. If that is good, they have a good interface, you will have much better performance. If I am a soldier and I have a good weapon, I will be able to shoot more enemies than if I'm a bad soldier in a bad weapon. And the military took this interaction, this interface, by the TTP, and that is for tactics, techniques, and procedures. I will not enter to explain the details of all of this, but it's a ways of facing different situations, and the difference between them are not categorical, but are more a continuous function. So remember, we use tactics, techniques, and procedures to allow performance in the interaction between people and their technology and equipment. Okay? So as I told you, to win a war, there are 3 sequential objectives that you have to do. And it's very logical. First is to survive. You have to survive. But you have to think always, number 3, counterattack, because it's not enough to survive. Because the enemy is over there, and if you don't kill her or him, she will kill you. So you have to be smarter, and while you are defending yourself, you have to, at the same time, thinking of how to retaliate and defeat them. So you have 3 simultaneously things that you have to do. First, survive. Second, counterattack, where you reorganize, and then you are able to win. So that's the thing that companies must be doing now. In the first step, okay, let's use the human performance system, in which we have a different way of seeing companies. Strategy is another thing. Strategy is a thing that was useful like 12 months ago, but not anymore as we think of that, a business strategy. We have adjusted. I'm not saying it's not a good thing, it's an excellent thing, but you have to adjust it, that weapon, you have to adjust it to be useful in this new reality. And here you can see what's going on also in terms of how you have to manage everything that you are facing. And we face this way. And I can tell you, when you use military doctrine in your processes and merge it with the traditional strategy tools, the value chain, everything that corporate knowledge, philosophy, whatever you want to call it, it works, and it works quite well, okay? So it's a summary of what I have just told you. We are seeing an information overflow situation. And you can see here a 3D printed machine. They are printing a motor, an engine. You can print a part here at your home that costs $5,000 with carbon fiber that lasts forever. Or you can print it in the alloy that you want. Okay, you will tell me, Mauricio, but the machine costs $100,000. Okay, don't buy the 3D printer. Send the CAD file, and they will print it for you, and you will receive it by Federal Express. But think of this: if you have all these CAD files, and you have this model here, okay, I scanned it with a laser. Okay, it costs $300, a laser scanner, 3D. I clean it on the computer, and I have a copy of it. So what about copyrights? So we are seeing the revolution of the industrial, I call it MP3. The same that happened for music is happening for industrial things. We have a huge copyright issue. And why this is growing so fast? Because of course we have COVID-19. And yesterday it was, no, you know what, Mauricio is very cool at this thing about the 3D printing, but I will continue to bring things from China. I don't care. Why are you having a 3D printer? And now you say, you know what? It's much better to have them. And then you start to think, how much is the cost of having this? You know what? It's much cheaper in terms of capital of having that. And then you see there in the second, we see the CRISPR technology and say, oh, you know, that's another theory that will never happen. 50 more years we will have something. This is DNA editing. No? But I can tell you that enzymes for industrial processes has already a revolution that has exploded like crazy here. Then we have blockchain. Of course, blockchain, where it's based on the cryptocurrencies. I already talked about the smart currencies, but I haven't talked about you, and there's another video about all the things regarding to the trust, how you get the monopoly of trust and you decentralize trust so you don't need banks anymore. So that's a crazy thing that is for another video, complete explanation. And the other thing that's growing like crazy is nanotechnology. That's small machines, microscopic materials like graphene. Graphene is it's the best thing we know to transmit electricity, and it's transparent and could put copper, the main export of my country, Chile, in jeopardy. And we have also hyper competition. We saw the price of oil went negative. Okay, yes, the guys were making bets, okay, in the markets, and suddenly they realized, oh, you know what? I'm going to have all this oil, and I don't have a place to put it. So I will pay you to get the oil and put it in a place. And it was for a few hours, no? But what I want to show you is that we are facing an hyper competition in terms of there are a few customers with money, few markets, everybody's full of knowledge. You know, we are the most college graduated PhD generation by far in the history of humankind. So you have thousands, millions of smart people that are unemployed and selling their services. And I put this Stratego name to, that's a 1950s photo, in terms of showing you that strategy as we thought it in this new world is not suitable anymore in my point of view. So in my point of view, we are seeing two different worlds that are changing. The first one is the traditional strategy in the contemporary era. I never liked people say, okay, you know what, this is very modern. Remember, modern is century 19. Contemporary is century 20, 21. No? But traditional strategy, that's part of the contemporary world, in my point of view, is not suitable anymore for the post-strategy world in blue that we are seeing there. No? So if you apply traditional management in information overflow, in hyper-competition, you will have value destruction because everybody's doing the same. If everybody's like having a lot of alcohol, they don't know what's going on. Oh, you know what's going on? I can't explain this. What's happening? There's too much information, too many things happening at the same time. I always say in my class, you know what? Let's go to the big numbers theory. And by analyzing the big numbers theory, you will understand sort of the big tendencies, and let's focus on that, and let's discover what's going on in the micro level, that what's going on every day, because nobody has defined this world. This world is invented by itself, and we don't know how. We have never had this kind of viruses. We will never have this open economy. This is new for everybody. However, we have tools to face this situation. Okay, so we decide, okay, you know what? How I face information overflow. Let's use artificial intelligence. Let's use it deeply, not to play, because there are a lot of people playing with it and it's fine. Okay, let's do whatever you want, and you know, this recognize this and that. You know what? Okay, but I use it to analyze financing companies. That's what I use it, and there is such few knowledge on that, and that's a bad and a good situation. A bad situation because we have to invest tons of time to understand and create cognitive capital on this. And how you face hyper competition? This is a war, my friend. So we use military doctrine. So we think differently. We say, okay, information overflow is a competitive advantage for us. Hyper competition, another competitive advantage. We have designed ourselves upon these characteristics, upon these futures. Those futures are, we morph ourselves, so these two situations are a competitive advantage for us. We don't reorganize, trying to redesign, no, we morph, we change, we build from. Information overflow and hyper competition are our basis, are our source of competitive advantage. So by doing that, in summarizing everything, we create a cognitive financial optimization model that is an artificial intelligence driven cash generation model that has 3 parts. The first of it is military doctrine, as I already told you. The second part is artificial intelligence, and of course, management tools. No, it's not that management tools are bad, are great, huge value, huge of capital there. We need to use those tools, but in combination with artificial intelligence and military doctrine. And when you combine those 3 things, you have the new way of managing companies, of managing organizations, of facing challenges, and that's the cognitive financial optimization model. And it's not only used, because when you said financial is everything. Basically, financial is the movement of resources. So this is applied to everything, not only to what I do directly, that's creating cash very rapidly, fresh cash very rapidly for companies, but it applies to everything. So I will start to explain, as my client allows me to do so, to explain how we are using this in different scenarios. So I hope this you can find this talk useful for you. That's what I expect to, is to open a new conversation on how we can tackle these difficult times. Maybe I'm wrong in a lot of things. I'm sure, and maybe you have much better ideas. And that's the intent of this. The intent is to open a conversation in which everybody of us can give new ideas, new concepts to tackle these complicated situations, and understand that we are living in a new matrix in which we need to give the best that we know, the best that we feel to allow others to build, to grow, and survive in this complex world. I'm sure we are going to superate this complex time. We as human beings have passed very complicated times in our history. We almost extincted several times. And this is not a thing, I'm not saying this will be a very complex situation as the ones that we faced when we went almost extinct. However, we have to learn, and the value is in the way of thinking on how value is being created, on how information is being translated. Okay, so I have to go to have dinner with my family. I hope you find this most useful, and I hope the best for you. This is Mauricio Quiroga, and thank you very much for your time.